Angarangana Salaka Chaksurun Miritam Yena Tashmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutare Sayam Rupakara Mayam Darati Swaparantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Siyata Parakamanam Sri Gurun Vaishnavam Cha Sri Rupam Sagadidam Sahagana Raganatam Vitam Stamsadevam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitam Cha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pastaya Bhutade Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tinamane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gurumani Pacharini Nirvishesa Sunyavadi Praskita Desadhari Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Siddhi Gaur Bhaktavrindam Narayanam Namaskritam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Sarasatam Vyasam Tato Jayodhira Nashtaprayasho Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagata Sevya Bhagati Uttamashoki Bhaktir Naisiki Nigama Kaparur Garitam Param Shukamakaramita Dravisamitam Pibata Bhagatam Rashamadayam Mahora Hora Sikubuvi Bakaham Krishna Swadam Bhagate Gamagina Karonashtadu Shamisha Parana Kodunoditaham Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Welcome to Motivational Monday. I decided to try something new today using the Zoom. And with the Zoom, I have my Facebook open side by side. And the only problem is, the only lack is that I can only see those of you who comment. When I'm using my phone, I can see anybody that's online and welcome you and say good morning to you. But when I'm using Zoom and through Zoom going on Facebook Live, I can only see those who comment, which is a good thing because we ask everyone not just to listen and sit back, but to go ahead and make some comment. Just say good morning or hi or Hare Krishna. So the only ones I can acknowledge so far are Anjali, who says Hare Krishna Charu Prabhu, Motivational Monday, hashtag, and Jimmy and Taruni from Minnesota. There are other people listening, but unless you comment, I'm not going to be able to respond to you. And by the way, because I can see the comments, I'm not going to necessarily look at them while I'm talking because I'm really absorbed in the subject matter of the talk, and to look over to one side could be a distraction. But if you ask questions in your comments when I finish the presentation, then I can address those questions directly, or you can ask the questions at the end. Rupa Manjari's come on. Sanjay Sharma, good morning, all of you. We're kicking off a brand new week here, coming to you from Spanish Fork, Utah. And as our background, we've got one of many drone-taken aerial views of the temple complex there. To your left, or maybe to your right, I'm not sure. It's to my left. There's a pavilion there, Performing Arts Pavilion, which has become a warehouse for our bulk color sales, and the temple itself. And then if you go down the stairs of the temple and then walk down the hill, you'll have our stage, pavilions, and amphitheater where we hold public events like the Festival of India and the Festival of Colors. Good morning, Vijay, everybody. So once again, I can only recognize you or say good morning to you if you make a comment. Just listening, I'm not going to be able to detect you because I'm using a different format. Speaking of detection, we're talking about Sankhya Yoga system this morning as opposed to Bhakti Yoga, the yoga devotion. Sankhya Yoga is analytical. And the discussion is kicked off by this verse. Excuse me, I'm just going to take a lozenge here. This is the 37th verse in the 3rd chapter of the 1st canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Na chasya kastin nipuna nena dhatur avaiti jantu kamanisha uti namami urupani bacho mano bacho bihi santan bato nata karyam ivagya. Translation: the foolish with a poor fund of knowledge cannot know the transcendental nature of the forms, names, and activities of the Lord, who is playing like an actor in a drama. Nor can they express such things, neither in their speculations or in their words. So if you're in the theater, someone's playing, he might be playing the lead role. He might also be playing supporting roles as well, going off stage and changing costumes and coming back on. And sometimes a man can even play the role of a woman, and sometimes a woman can play the role of the man just by costume and makeup alterations. So seeing that actor costumed and made up on stage, playing a role very expertly, tells you nothing about the real person behind the show, behind the drama. Similarly, Krishna comes, Avijananti mam mudha manosim tanumashita. Manosim means in a human-like form. God comes as a historical personality. He descends from the spiritual world. He's the chariot driver of Arjuna. He's the friend of the Pandavas. He comes out of the Yadu dynasty. Just like the example is given that the moon rises over a body of water. And there's also the reflection of the moon on the body of the water. So as the moon rises on the horizon, it casts a reflection on the body of the water. So uninformed people with a poor fund of knowledge may mistakenly think that the moon is coming out of the water, rather than that the moon is far away in space and simply reflecting itself on the water. So Krishna appears in the dynasty of the Yadus, quotes, but actually Krishna is not part of any dynasty or any family. The form that Krishna exhibits, the manusyanam tanum asritam, the human-like form that he exhibits, is not made of flesh and blood. It's not composed of mucus and bile and phlegm. It's a spiritual form. Advaitam achutam anadim ananta rupam. Lord Brahma, the creator of the universe, says God is Advaita. That means there's no difference between his inside and his outside. His form is spirit through and through. And so he appears within his historical context. He was on the planet for 125 years. There was a date of his so-called birth. There was a date of his so-called death. But for God, there's no birth or death. He's ajo, pishana, vyayatma. He's eternal, infallible. He's unborn. So if you simply see him as a human being or as a historical personality, if you simply study him from an academic or mundane point of view, you'll never penetrate the mysteries behind the form, activities, pastimes, and paraphernalia of the Lord. You have to devote yourself to him under the training and guidance of a realized soul, someone who is already devoted to the Lord in the bona fide authorized way. You hook yourself to his cart, and you'll also get knowledge of the real Lord who is behind the historical personality and the actor. But without devotion, without training under a bona fide spiritual master, Krishna is just going to be another ordinary human being, or maybe extraordinary human being, and his Bhagavad Gita is not going to have any special significance. From a relative point of view, the Bhagavad Gita may have a better level or category of knowledge than other mundane literatures, but if Krishna is material, if Krishna is an ordinary, even extraordinary personality, if Krishna has a material body and mind, therefore, that which Krishna speaks, the song of God, is limited to the shortcomings of an embodied conditioned soul. We all have, those of us who are embodied, have 4 defects: tendency to make mistakes, illusions, cheat, and our senses are imperfect. So everything that's mysterious, everything that's purposeful, everything about Krishna which can free you from all miseries of life is not on the table if you're a mundaner. And those are the problems with approaching Krishna through material science. Prabhupada says in the purport here, material science comprises 10 items and nothing more, but the other 3 items, namely mind, intelligence, and false ego, are neglected by the materialists. Philosophers who deal with mental activities are also not perfect in knowledge because they do not know the ultimate source, Krishna. The false ego, I am, and it is mine, which constitute the basic principles of material existence, includes 10 sense organs for material activities. Intelligence refers to the total material creation called the Mahatattva. Therefore, from the 8 separated energies of the Lord are manifest the 24 elements of the material world, which are the subject matter of Sankhya atheistic philosophy. They are originally offshoots from Krishna's energies that are separated from him, but atheistic Sankhya philosophers of the poor fund of knowledge do not know Krishna as the cause of all causes. The subject matter for discussion in the Sankhya philosophy is only the manifestation of the external energy of Krishna as it is described in the Bhagavad Gita. Let me break it down for you here, okay? If you're a materialist, a material scientist, an empirical scientist, thanks for joining us, Sundari Priya. If you're a material scientist, your field of study are only the 5 material elements: earth, air, fire, water, and maybe ether. That's described in the 7th chapter, 4th verse of the Bhagavad Gita. Bhumir apo nalo veda kam mano buddhavata. Bhumir apo nalo veda kam. These are the 5 gross elements of material nature: earth, air, fire, water, and ether, which carries sound. If you're a materialist empiric scientist, this is as far as it goes. Now, if you're a psychologist, you can go a little higher on the material platform. It's a more subtle level, but it's higher. The psychologist deals with the ego, the mind, and the intelligence. But that's it. That's as far as the material scientists and speculator and psychologists can go. Only the 5 earth, air, fire have their correspondent senses, so that's 10. And then the mind, intelligence, and false ego is an additional 3, so that's 13. Whoa, something's going on with all the sirens going past. Now, if you're a yogi, if you follow the process of Sankhya philosophy, you can get more deeply into the analytical aspect of material nature. The Sankhya philosopher discovers not just the 13 material elements, but they break it down further into more detail into 25 material elements. So here they are, okay? There are 5 gross elements, 5 subtle elements, 4 internal senses, 5 senses for gathering knowledge, 5 outward organs of action, and all of these are known as pradhan. Pradhan is basically the embryonic form of the material creation. So we get the breakdown of these 25 elements, 24, and then the 5th one is Brahman, which the Sankhya philosopher plumbs. The Sankhya philosopher digs these out by introspection and analysis. Sometimes the Sankhya philosopher, his philosophical path is called neti. You study earth. Okay, that's not the mystery. That's not the source of life. You study air. That's not the mystery of life. You study the mind. You study the intelligence. You study the policy. You throw things out one after another. So you end up throwing out 24 material elements, and then you come to the 25th, which is Brahman, which is the nature of the living being. So by this process of elimination, very painstaking process, very analytical, very dry process, you finally throw everything out the window and you're left with the only explanation for the existence of life as Brahman, or the spirit soul. But you're still not on the level of understanding from whence the soul comes and what's the difference between the individual soul and the supreme soul. So you need bhakti for that. So you might as well just start right out with bhakti, because bhakti starts at the top and then everything is understood. Prabhupada one time said that bhakti is like being on the highest Himalayan peak from which you can see all the lower peaks. Sankhya is like being on the lower peak and going from one peak to another peak to another peak to another peak, gradually getting higher and higher and higher until you can get to a certain level where you understand that behind matter is spirit. But to understand the complexities and the categories of spirit, you have to have mercy. We can't understand spirit with any of the 24 material elements. Spirit is subtler. It's beyond. And God is beyond even the realization of spirit, because he's a person. So he hides himself. Even if you understand spirit, even if you're in the realm of spirit, even if you're dabbling in spirit, even if spirit is uncovering itself to you in certain aspects, God is a person. He's playing hide and seek with you. He's the master of spirit. He's the master of matter. So he's only going to reveal himself to those who are devoted to him. You can't assault him. You can't storm him. You can't approach him like you're playing capture the flag, because he can't be captured. He can't be captured. You know, Mother Yashoda, one time when Krishna was on the planet playing the role of the son of Mother Yashoda, he was very naughty, keeping Mother Yashoda from her household duties. And so she wanted to restrain him. She got a piece of rope and a big mortar. She tried to tie him temporarily around the waist to the mortar. She found her rope was 2 inches too short. So she went and got another rope, and I was in the Boy Scouts. And when you have 2 pieces of rope and you want to join them, how many of you know what knot that is? You get brownie points. You get a metaphorical virtual star on your forehead. You can put it in the comments if you like. Govinda Dave, Prashant, thanks for joining us. Anybody know the knot that you use to join 2 separate pieces of rope together? If you're in the Boy Scouts, Govinda Dave, I bet you have the answer to this. Okay, there's a bit of a lag between Zoom and Facebook, so I'm not going to wait. I'll tell you the answer. Sheep bend. So you combine 2 pieces of rope and you make them twice as long with the sheep bend. That's what Mother Yashoda did, presumably. But it was still 2 inches too short. So you went and got another rope, another sheep bend. She did this several times and it was always 2 inches too short. So Krishna was revealing to the world, teaching through this pastime, that nobody can physically, by their own mind or their own physical faculties, capture or tie up the Lord. And then finally, when he saw that Mother Yashoda was distressed and sweating, starting to get anxious, because of her love for him, Krishna realized that, this is only an effort of love on the part of Mother Yashoda. After all, she has to get her household duties done in order to better serve Krishna. So then he allowed the rope to encompass him. He allowed her to join the 2 pieces of rope and tie a knot. Of course, later on, he dragged the mortar, 1,000-pound mortar, a little baby, between 2 trees and broke these 2 trees, and 2 shining, effulgent beings came out. That's a whole nother story. But the point is that God cannot be assaulted. God, you can't take out your measuring tape and say, God is so high, God is so wide. You can't put God in your pocket because he's a person. So you might as well start with Bhakti right from the very, very beginning. Otherwise, if you have atheistic tendencies, if you're a skeptic, cynic par excellence, you can start with the material elements one after another, discarding them, rejecting them. This is not it. This is not it. This is not it. And here's your path. Here's your path. From the 3rd canto, 26th chapter, 12th verse of the Bhagavatam, it says there are 5 gross elements, namely earth, air, water, fire, and ether. And then the other 5 subtle elements that correspond to these 5 gross elements are smell, taste, color, touch, and sound. That gives us 10. So you go through those as a Sankhya. And then according to the 13th verse of this 26th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd canto, then we go further beyond those 10. It's described the senses for acquiring knowledge and the organs for action, number 10. So after listing these, we're going to get to 20. So the auditory sense, the sense of taste, the tactile sense, the sense of sight, the sense of smell, the active organ for speaking, the active organs for working, those for traveling, generating, and evacuating. And now we're up to 20. We got 4 more to go in terms of matter, and then we bump into spirit, which is the background for matter. Without spirit, matter has no life, no value, no animation. Thanks, Prakash. You'll notice that Prakash is coming up with all kinds of appropriate quotes here. Right now, Prakash, Prashant, we're on the 14th verse of the 26th chapter. The internal subtle senses are experiences having 4 aspects: the shape of mind, intelligence, ego, and contaminated consciousness. Distinctions between them can be made only by different functions, since they represent different characteristics. Okay, so now we're up to 24. The last 4, again, are shape of the mind, intelligence, ego, and contaminated consciousness. So if you're a Sankhya, you've gone through all 24 of these and you have still not discovered the secret of life, of vitality. You can combine these 24 elements in any combinations or permutations you want, and you'll still not be able to recreate life. When Prabhupada first arrived in America, someone got him a speaking engagement at MIT. He addressed the Nobel laureates and the brilliant minds at Massachusetts Institute of Technology, the greatest technical school that America fields. And he said, "Can you tell me the difference between a living body and a dead body?" Not one person in the audience was able to put forward an answer. You can take earth, air, fire, water, all the elements, They're all there in a dead body. And if we were just a combination of material, subtle and gross material elements, you should be able to bring that body back to life, because everything, according to the empiricist, that you need for life is there in the dead body. But what's the difference between the dead body and living better? After coming to the end, the cul-de-sac, the dead end, the Sankhya has to conclude that beyond the 24 material elements is the soul, which we call Brahman. And when the mixing element of time enters into the 24 elements, then everything springs to life. The secret of life is the soul. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells Arjuna, 29th verse, 2nd chapter, Prashant, the soul is amazing. Ascharya yat pastiti kashtirenam. Ascharya means amazing. Look at how many times Krishna uses the word amazing, inconceivable, beyond the ability of the mind to understand it. You see, the Sankhya can analyze the material elements because he's using material facilities and material mind, so he can somewhat come to grips with those. But he can't analyze soul, which is beyond matter, and therefore the soul is amazing to the Sankhya, to the mundane philosophers. Inconceivable. Soul does not subject itself to your analysis, does not reveal itself even under the microscope. Anora niyam shavanu sham. So then just look at how many times the word for amazing is used in this verse. Acharya vat pashati kastirinam, acharya vat badati tatayava chanya, acharya vakstenam anya srinoti, shutvapayanam vedana chaiva kastit. Krishna says, some look on the soul as amazing, some describe him as amazing, some hear of him as amazing, while others, even after hearing about him, cannot understand him at all. That verse is right up there on your Facebook comment section if you want to take note of it. Thank you, Prashant. The fact that the atomic soul, and it's described, and after I give you the translation of this, you'll know very clearly why it is that the soul is not subject to scrutiny by the mundane senses and mind. You take one hair, if you want to know the length and breadth and size of the soul, take one hair and divide it, if you could, into 1,000 parts. And then you take 1/1000th, you divide into 100 parts, and then you take 1/100th part of the tip of a hair, and you divide that into another 100 parts. And then that 1/10,000th the size of a tip of a hair, that's the dimensions of the soul. No wonder it's elusive. What to speak of the creator of the soul, the supreme personality of Godhead, from whom all souls come. Aham sarvasya prabhava. Prabham navartit vartate iti matva vedanti mam buddha bhava samanvitaha. I am the source of both the 24 material elements as well as the 25th element, soul. Everything emanates from me, the wise who know this, and you become wise by serving the Supreme Soul, not by trying to capture him, bring him down to your level, bring him within your limited scope of perception. No, you acknowledge from the beginning, achinta kalo ye bhava natam starkena yojya. The definition of God is that he's beyond my ability, the ability of my senses, my 24 faculties to see or to experience. But it is entirely within the ability of God to reveal himself to those who serve him in loving devotion under the guidance of another one of his mature, advanced, surrendered servants, the guru or the spiritual master. Now that soul, which is but a tiny infinitesimal spark of the Supreme Soul, enters within the body of a whale. Tumangilas are fishes that are described in the Vedas that can swallow whales. They eat whales for breakfast. And that tiny 1/10,000th the size of a tip of a hair is animating the body of a whale, the body of a tumagila, the body of a shark, the body of an elephant. There's banyan trees that take up 5-6 acres, a single tree, a single soul. That's 1/10,000th the size of a tip of a hair. So soul is animating huge, huge bodies in nature. And it's also inside the microbic germ, millions and billions. Between my eyes and the eyes of this computer screen, there are countless souls in microbiotic forms, millions and billions of which only occupy an inch of space. Now, my question is not that amazing, friends, ladies and gentlemen? Man with a poor fund of knowledge cannot understand the wonders of the individual atomic spark of spirit. What to speak of God if you can't understand one infinitesimal particle of God? How can you understand God? If you can't understand a particle of sunshine, the power of it, how are you going to understand the sun globe itself? I'll give you, if you can give me some emojis there on Facebook. I haven't seen any emojis at all. Can we do some emojis, Anjali? I can bring out my soul song if you like. I feel moved to wax poetical. I don't know if I can see emojis with this current setup. But anyway, I'm assuming that you're cheering me on with emojis. And so it's time for a rap song interlude here that's appropriate to the subject matter. When I look into your eyes, I see a shining soul. When I look into your eyes, I see a spirit soul. I see a soul that's never born, spark that never dies. Yours up high, back home, back to the spiritual skies. From dust you come, to dust you go, was never spoken of the soul. This body, like a set of clothes, wears out and gets disposed. Flame of light and love gives life to the machine. Candle never snuffs, subtle, sublime, unseen. For the soul there's no beginning, ending there's none. Smaller than the atom, brighter than the sun. When I look into your eyes, I see a shining soul. When I look into your eyes, I see a spirit soul. I see a soul that's never born, a spark that never dies. Yearns to fly back home, back to the spiritual skies. The inner soul continues when the outer body ends, like flame from wood, sparks ascending, transcending dark matter, blending with the sky, invisible to the naked eye. You cannot kill, nor can you die. You cannot burn, nor can you fry. The soul cannot be scorched by any blaze. No water can drown the spirit. No wind can make it fade. You cannot cut another, nor can you bleed. The soul is eternal, unborn, a seed, indivisible, indestructible, forever free from birth, death, old age, and disease. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. As a cloud is seated on air, so spirit supports the flesh. Take away the living force, it's just chemicals lying there, a corpse naked and bare. Not a twitch or wiggle, not a subtle wink or giggle. Can't tickle it or puzzle it with a riddle. Deaf, blind, mute, dumb, numb. Can't reward it, can't ignore it, can't restore it. Deader than a doornail, stiffer than a board. Only thing to return it, burn it, bury it. Earth to earth, dust to dust, ash to ashes. Infirm body versus immortal soul. Learn the difference, conquer ignorance, make a spiritual choice. Sing out, give voice, rejoice. Make some noise, folks, for the spiritual force. I say Hari out there. You guys say Hari, Hari. Again, Hari. I say Krishna. You say Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. I say Hari. You say Hari, Hari, Hari. I say Hari. You say Rama, Hari, Hari. I say Rama, you say Rama, Rama, Rama. I say Hari, you say Hari, Hari, Hari. Good. I can't see them with this setup, but I'm assured by Anjali that there was a huge flurry of emojis, and I thank you all, one and all, for that. So owing to this bias, this prejudice for material inquiry only, not being open to the service of the Lord, which is the pathway to ultimate knowledge, most men in this age cannot imagine how such a small particle can become or power entities which are so great on the one hand and so small on the other hand. So men look at the soul proper as something wonderful, amazing, either by constitution or by description. But for the most part, 99.9% of people are in illusion by the material energy. So engrossed are they in the exploitation of matter that they have no time and no interest in understanding the living force. Even though it's a fact that without this understanding of the self, all of your activities end in defeat, the hard struggle for existence. Lord Jesus Christ said, what profiteth the man he gains the whole world, but loses his immortal soul? And yet we find people are so busy like little mice running here and there, taking care of their material body, pursuing their self-centered dreams, that they can't take time out to understand what is it that makes them alive. And you may be a big politician. The President of the United States is 74 years old, not in very good health, just got infected with coronavirus. He could go at any time, and yet he's committing so many questionable activities simply in order to get reelected for another 4 years of what? Stress, anxiety, criticism, tension. Give it up, my friend. The end of life should be a preparation for the life that never ends. There's nothing more pathetic, even if you're the prime minister or the president, than hanging on, clinging to so-called material fame, knowledge, and acquisition and recognition to the very fag end of life. Narada Muni echoed the words of Jesus Christ, or rather, it was Jesus Christ echoing the words of Narada Muni, spoken to Vyasadeva, the compiler of the Vedas, thousands of years ago, wherein Narada Muni said, Tyakva Shardanam Charanam Bhujamahare, Bhajana Pakvata Patetado Yadi, Yatra Kaba Barabuddha Musharim, Kovarta Tambajata Shradarmataham. Prashant, I don't know exactly what verse that is, but you could type in the search Tyakva, T-Y-A, Tyakva, K-T-V-A, and it will probably come up. I know it's in the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So Narada Muni said basically the same thing. A moment in this human form, a moment in full consciousness. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. A moment in full Krishna consciousness makes your life successful. On the other hand, an entire lifetime spent as the prime minister or the president or the king or the dictator, without any inkling of knowing the difference between the dead body and the living body, without concentrating or trying to awaken any awareness of the living force, is a life that's simply defeated. Parabhavastavara bodhajato yavagna jinishu atmatadbam. A life devoid of inquiry about the absolute truth is a life of defeat. So people are so misguided. And even if they do come to this conclusion that behind the 24 elements of matter, there's spirit, however they arrive at it, through Sankhya philosophy, directly or indirectly, now they arrive at another big pitfall, another big stumbling block, because they haven't arrived there through the process of mercy, through the process of submission and surrender to the Supreme Soul. So certain truths, essential truths, still remain elusive to them. Granted, they're above 99.9% of the people who never make an inquiry about the soul. They know the difference between this, that there's behind and motivating all these elements is Brahman, is the soul. But without devotion, without mercy, they will not know that from where the soul comes, why it is here, what its connection is to the Supreme Soul, and how to make life successful. In all the world, it is very, very rare and difficult to find someone who understands perfectly, without any cloud of ignorance, the position of the Supersoul and the atomic soul. But if somehow or other, due to the grace of the spiritual master, the devotees of the Lord, one discovers the soul, the Supreme Soul, and the process of bhakti by which the individual soul links with the Supreme Soul, then one's life is successful. And it is possible to approach this knowledge through the teachings and the subject matter of the Bhagavad Gita. Why? Because Krishna is the original spiritual master. He's the original repository of all knowledge. It all comes from him. Mata parataram nanyat kinchid asti dhananjaya maitaram idam saram sutre mana gana iva. Krishna says, everything is resting upon me as pearls are strung on a thread. So as the Jagat Guru, as the original spiritual master, Krishna is speaking all these confidential truths to his friend and intimate disciple, Arjuna. This is the process. The truths, the knowledge, ultimate knowledge of the soul and Supreme Soul can be revealed to one through the causeless mercy of the spiritual master or the pure devotee. Otherwise, no one can properly describe the transcendental nature of the absolute truth. He is beyond the expression of mind and speech. There are many letters in the alphabet, and they can be combined into so many syllables, and those syllables can be combined into so many words. There are countless permutations of letters and syllables and words, vocabulary, language, and yet you'll not find God within any of them. He's always beyond the power of our mind and our speech to comprehend or describe him. And those who do try to stretch their mind for encompassing the nature of the absolute truth come up with faulty descriptions, misleading descriptions, the most salient of which is that the individual soul and the Supreme Soul are one, that there's no difference between them. The activities, nature of the Lord remain mysterious. Prabhupada says there are two classes of materialistic. There are the fruitive workers who only work in terms of the temporary framework of this material world. And then there are the empirical philosophers. Obviously, the fruitive workers never get to the realization of the soul. They never have any information of the absolute truth. And the mental speculators, after being frustrated in terms of trying to enjoy the property of the Lord, they turn their faces towards the absolute truth, trying to encompass him by mental speculation. And even for these higher classes of beings, the Lord is always a mystery. Again, we start with our original example, that of the actor on stage, costumed in makeup. No one can discern who he is in real life. The illusion is too strong. The illusion is too expert. And the person in the audience, the lay person in the audience, does not have the tools to understand details about who is the actor in the costume with the makeup. Another example is jugglery or magic. We see someone juggling 4 or 5 different pins, and we can't understand how in the world can he do that. If I were to practice and practice and practice and practice and practice, I still don't understand how I could do what he's doing. It's a total mystery. So the non-devotees, as mentally agile as they may be, as productive and competent in terms of fruitive work, are always in ignorance. They have limited knowledge. And with the limited faculties that are available to them, they are unable to penetrate into the mysterious region of transcendence. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We'll finalize our session here today on this particular verse with this paragraph by Srila Prabhupada. With such a poor fund of knowledge, there is no access to the real nature of the Supreme Being. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord is always in a transcendental position, even when he is within this material world. But ignorant men consider the Lord one of the great personalities of the world, and thus they are misled by the illusory energy. Om Tat Sat. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Thanks for being with us. I've got Facebook here to one side. You can see me looking over to the side here, and I can see Lakshmi Nisringa bidding us Hare Krishna, Sanjay Sharma. Power recognition, yes, can make one go berserk. We're getting practical examples of that nowadays. Some of the politicians seem to have taken leave of their senses. Rama, Hare. I'm trying to figure out how to access all the comments. I can only see a few of them, and I'm not sure how with this system. We're trying a new system today. Rather than going directly on Facebook Live through the phone, we're going through Zoom and through Zoom we're going to Facebook Live. There are 29 comments. I can only see 4. So if anybody has a higher level of expertise than I do, tell me how I can access the other 25 comments at this point in time. It remains a mystery to me, just as the nature of the soul remains a mystery to the materialists and the mental speculators. And just as the materialists and the mental speculators have to rely upon a higher power and surrender to that power to enlighten them, I'm throwing myself on the mercy of all our attendees and listeners, some of whom might be more technically adept than me. You can tell me how I can access the other 25 comments now and respond to them while I'm live on Facebook. I don't have the answer now, but perhaps when we meet again tomorrow for Transcendental Tuesday, you'll have shown your mercy upon me, and we can take our interactivity to the next level. In the meantime, keep safe, keep healthy, you and your family members, and above all, keep chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.